if you get funding, but the business is not working, you're very vulnerable in the sense that you're always dependent on the VC. If you have a working business and you get a bad investment proposal, you can just say to the proposal, next.
Here with Pedro Santos, the co-founder of BETA-I, and now the CEO and founder of Darwinlabs. How are you, Pedro?
I'm good. And you?
Really well, thank you. So tell us a little bit about your experience here with Entrepreneurial Tribe. How is it going?
I think it's going really well. I find it really interesting to talk to people that basically work from anywhere or want to work from anywhere. It's quite an eclectic group. You have people from the US, from Europe, from Portugal as well, which is in Europe, but so it's really fun.
Tell us a little bit about your background.
So I'm a computer science major that then studied business. I co-founded 3 companies already, started BETA-I, an NGO. I wrote a book on entrepreneurship. Yeah, that's pretty much it, I think.
Yes, tell us a little bit about your experience in BETA-I. So what did you gain for that?
So in 2010, when I just came back from the Netherlands to Portugal, there was nothing going on in Portugal except we were being bailed out, and there was everyone is in panic and so on. And in the Netherlands, I became a facilitator for Startup Weekend, and I saw a lot of entrepreneurship events. So when I came back, I decided, okay, I need to help in some way, and so I'll help by bringing these events that maybe will start the entrepreneurship ecosystem and so on. And that's what I did when I came back, and then that caught the attention of the other co-founders of BETA-I, that they were also trying to help the ecosystem and so on. And they're like, well, why don't you join us? We're trying to do this and so on. And it was really funny because each one of us was in a way specialized in a different part of the ecosystem.
And that helps a lot, yeah.
So we had complementary skills and events and so on. So we started by organizing beta talks and Startup Weekend, and then we looked into creating an accelerator and so on. And in the beginning, it was all about there's nothing, so we have to create something. And then maybe 2 years later, there was already everyone copying the beta talks and everyone trying to organize Startup Weekends and stuff like that, or making copies of Startup Weekends. And so as that happened, okay, now this part we don't need to do anymore. Let's go and focus on that part. So I actually drew a step case, let's say, where everything that an entrepreneurship ecosystem needs, from the awareness part to actually having VC money and exits and so on. So we use that as a baseline of, okay, there's already events in this part, so we don't do them. There's nothing here, so we focus on it. In the beginning, there was nothing, so we did everything. But then as time passed, we kind of more and more narrowed down until there was a point that we said, okay, the 2 parts that we can really help is in the acceleration part and in the funding part.
That's where you focused on.
Yeah, that started when we started first trying to get Techstars here, and then we didn't manage, and then we looked into Mass Challenge and so on. It became Lisbon Challenge. So that's where you see the shift externally. And now it's basically, it's focused on the accelerator. It has an investment fund associated with it. It also does vertical accelerators for big corporations. And now it's more like an innovation company, let's say, than in the beginning, where it was like, okay, we do everything. Yeah, because there was the need
I guess
for it.
that's
now
how people start normally, just they progress into a more narrow kind of thing.
No, but there it was really because there was nothing, and we
saw
that we needed for you to have for you to invest in startups, you have to have startups in the first place. For you to have startups in the first place, people need to know what the hell is a startup, and so on. So there was nothing.
One thing led to another, and
so we had to build the entire thing, and then as more and more associations and volunteers and so on started doing the things, let's say down the funnel, we could focus on the higher value ones that were harder to set up, but that fortunately we had conditions to do so. Yeah.
So let's switch gears a little bit here. I think everybody wants to know about the Lisbon entrepreneurial paradigm going on like 10 years ago, 5 years ago now, and in the future. What's your take on that?
Has nothing to do. I think 10 years ago there was nothing, but there was a big need for it. And if you remember, everyone was like, okay, the sky is falling on us and everything is bad and the economy is bad and so on. But in reality, what I saw there is that the younger generation, there was a paradigm shift in, okay, no one's going to fix this for us. We have to fix it, right? And so when BETA-I appeared and we started doing that, a lot of people that came to us really wanted to help and do things and help the country and so on. And that kind of created a certain momentum that then started helping things to change, right? So 5 years later, we got to the point where we were already recovering from the economy. We also started getting a lot of tourism visibility, let's say, into Portugal.
Yeah, Portugal, Lisbon, Porto is really trying right now. Yeah.
It was when we started also getting Web Summit and stuff like that, and all of that increased the visibility of Portugal. And I like to think BETA-I helped, and I think I'm not being cocky by doing it. It helped a lot. So we did a lot of things to try to promote that. And it was when we started getting foreign companies wanting to come to Lisbon to not only to help learn for 3 months, but actually to stay. That was kind of like the beginning. So there was a paradigm shift where before they will come, learn something, nice weather, good food, we're off. And from then on, it started going, no, we really want to create a base in Portugal and be. We had one of the two or one of the three. Either we had Eastern European companies coming to Portugal and being the bridge to Europe, or Brazilian companies wanting to Portugal to be the bridge to Europe, or British companies and Northern European companies coming to Lisbon and being the bridge to Brazil, which was very interesting to see that. But so, yeah, 2015 more or less that happened. Now, when you look at it,
what about now? Yeah.
Now I think it's, come on, we have Madonna living in Lisbon, right? So it's at the overhype phase. I think now it has a big visibility, and I think it continues to accelerate. We have big corporations like Mercedes and so on opening offices here, and big startups also looking into the ecosystem here. Which I think is a very positive thing. It's going to bring interesting challenges, especially to the local companies, culture, and in terms of resources and so on. But I think now Lisbon is in fashion.
Definitely.
I think we reached that point. I like to think that we're not dumb enough to think that this is going to last forever, but I think we are. So a lot of people think this is going to last forever.
We are drunk with the idea.
Yeah,
right?
We're drunk with the idea. But I think it's fine to dream, and we should keep on pushing that dream. So I think in 2008 there's this very good marketing guy in Portugal. He came up with a campaign for Portugal that was Europe's West Coast. So it was comparing us to Silicon Valley. Mm-hmm. So we have the bridge, and we have the weather. We have everything. We just lack the VCs, at least like San Francisco. But I think it's a nice dream to work for. So I hope the future brings us closer to that.
What about the outlook? How do you see this going over the next 5 years or 10 years?
Well, the outlook, I think it's positive. I think there's a few challenges. Depending on what you want to focus on depends on the challenge, but I think the biggest challenge in terms of, I think the ecosystem is going to grow. But what you see is that Portuguese companies, not Portuguese companies, but companies that come to Lisbon, their headquarters are not in Lisbon. They use Lisbon as a talent pool. We have very good software engineers, we have good UX people and so on, and they use that resource, which is great for the ecosystem, and it helps. But what you see is that even Portuguese founders that created the company in Lisbon, the headquarters are not here. They're in Delaware, they're in London, they're in wherever it makes sense. And being an entrepreneur myself, I completely understand it, and it makes absolute sense. But it also shows that we have to make some changes to the model so that the headquarters are here, because then all the value that is being created goes to the US or to London or so on.
Do you see some sort of regulation coming into play, or maybe?
No. Unfortunately, no. It's something I think it's being pushed for quite some years already.
What would you wish happen and that problem?
Well, it has, one of the main things there is tax. The other main thing is the justice system. It's the main complaint. So the tax for corporations in Portugal are not very helpful, let's say. And at the same time, they also come up with different rules at different times and so on, which makes foreign investors very nervous. And that ties in with the justice system as well. That is like a case in court takes over 10 years to be solved.
Yeah.
Which means that if there's a dispute,
it's too slow to get
it's too slow to get to a conclusion, which means that if I'm an American VC or a UK VC or something like that, or even a founder, if I don't trust the justice system, I don't want my company to be there, right? Yes. Because I will potentially have issues and I want to solve them and so on. So I think it's the two main components that are missing. One is the tax authorities understand the model that startups work and adapt the rules for it. And the other one is the justice system just to do their work, to be honest.
So you're still bullish on Lisbon and Portugal, but there are some things that need to be worked out. That's your take on it.
Yeah.
Okay, tell us a little bit about Darwinlabs. Tell us about that.
Okay, so Darwinlabs. So I founded Darwinlabs 5 years ago, actually. It's a specialized software development company. And we basically do consultancy from here to Northern Europe and Northern US or North America. And it's absolutely bootstrapped, which everyone was very surprised because I know quite a lot about investment, and I'm actually in BETA-I, I'm one of the guys that belongs to the board of investment and so on, and helped create the fund.
But in this case, you just completely
in this case,
VC.
In this case, because because I know how VC funds work, I wanted to create a company that can generate its own spin-offs. So it's not fully focused on profit or growth or scale and so on, and the IPO.
Sales.
That's not the focus. So I know that if I would raise money, I would be head-to-head against their interests. And I didn't want it, basically. What I wanted is a company that is big enough to generate revenue, that then I can create products that then spin off, and those can get funding and so on. But basically, it's my own little personal R&D lab, let's call it. And so it didn't make sense to get funding. So basically, I started by myself with no co-founders, and I was the first employee / consultant. and I built it up, and now we're 30, and we have customers like Airbus and Colliers and JLL and
Congratulations.
very large corporations. So.
Entrepreneurship is really trendy right now. What kind of advice do you have to young entrepreneurs who are maybe not focusing on sales but focusing on getting funded? What's your take on that?
Don't do that. Well, the fastest way to get funding is to have a working company. So that's the fastest way. So I would say that it's much more important for an entrepreneur to be focused on getting the business side working than on getting funding. Because if you get funding, but the business is not working, you're very vulnerable in the sense that you're always dependent on the VC. If you have a working business and you get a bad investment proposal, you can just say to the proposal, next. If the business is not working, you're depending on the proposal to survive. So you're in a much worse negotiation point. So it's always better to be able to find a model that works and you can survive even without funding, and then raise funding than the other way around.
How do you see the concept of smart money? So getting VC money, but it's really an interesting asset to the company. What's your take on that?
It can make a huge difference, and that's actually the competitive advantage of places like San Francisco, is exactly the smart money. Like, it's not that they inject a lot of money into the company, but the fact that the person that injected the money is actually friends with someone who can be my client or my biggest partner, or knows the VC because he invested in someone that can scale my company, it makes a huge difference. And smart money is something that we still lack in Portugal, but it is, let's say, as my generation starts exiting and selling businesses and so on, and the previous one as well, you'll have more and more smart money to come. But it is really, really helpful. And the opposite is really, really hurtful as well. So yeah, it's an important concept.
So a good piece of advice to share with entry-level entrepreneurs, medium-sized entrepreneurs, and top of the level kind of stuff.
I think that entry level is ask advice to the top level and listen, and really listen, not only think, yeah, I know better, because actually they went through probably a lot of things that you're going through. So, and don't be afraid of asking for advice, because usually entrepreneurs are quite helpful because they went through it. The mid-level one, I would say, just focus on implementation. That's the main thing. Don't
get lost somewhere.
Yeah, don't get lost. And I think that the top level is just contribute back.